HIMS Lifestyle Innovation.
I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today about job hunting tips for the visually impaired. My name is Michelle Paley and I work with HIMS Inc. out of Austin, Texas. We make assistive technology products for people with low vision and blindness. And we are very excited to have a special guest speaker on our webinar today. His name is Joe Strechay, and he is the program manager for the CareerConnect program by the American Foundation for the Blind. So we're very excited to have him on the line today. He does trainings and interacts with people concerning this topic on a regular basis. So we'll consider him the expert today. Very quickly, I just want to go over a little bit about who HIMS is. So like I said, we are based in Austin, Texas. We make assistive technology products for the low vision and people who are blind. We have 100% US-based sales and support team out of our Austin, Texas office. We have customer-centric values, and what that means is that when you guys make a suggestion for a product or a feature that you'd like to see added to one of our products, in a lot of cases, if it's something a lot of people want, you'll find that it gets added to products in the future. So we do take your feedback very seriously. And we have unique product features. We have features in many of our products that no one else has. We have wireless compatibility to iPads in some of our magnifiers. We have proprietary apps in our note takers that absolutely no one else has. And we're very proud of that. So if you guys have more questions about who HIMS is, please go ahead and ask at the end of the webinar. And some of the things that we're going to cover today are when and how to discuss your disability with a prospective employer, how to deal with a potential employer's fears or concerns about your abilities or necessary adaptations, where you can look for disability-friendly positions, what to do if you've been discriminated against, and specific assistive technology products that can help you land, keep, and excel at your new position. And just by way of a quick intro, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Joe Strechay here for a while. He is, he's the CareerConnect Program Manager for the American Foundation for the Blind. He works with states and organizations specifically focused on transition, post-secondary preparation, and employment initiatives. He provides teen and adult employment workshops around the country and professional development on various topics for professionals. He works closely with organizations representing business and corporations around the hiring of persons who are blind or visually impaired. He's worked for the state of Florida and the state of New Jersey's state agencies specific to vocational rehabilitation for individuals who are blind or visually impaired, and has studied at East Carolina University and Florida State University. Joe, I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for a while and you can take over.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate the introduction and kind words. I'm excited to be with all of you today. As Michelle mentioned, I work for the American Foundation for the Blind and manage the AFB CareerConnect program. You can find us at afb.org/cc or afbcareerconnect.org. But we're going to be talking about a few topics that were mentioned earlier, such as when and how to discuss your disability with a prospective employer. You know, there is no perfect answer to this question, but I'll tell you that the employment process is about building that trust and honesty with an employer. So the idea as you move through the points of disclosure. So there's different points where you can disclose information. Disclosure meaning providing information that is sensitive to yourself. Putting yourself out there, basically. So I'm a big believer in earlier is better, but you know, I'm not going to put it in my resume, but I may mention specific terms that may relate to disability in my resume. But I'm not going to call out my disability until I provide that opportunity to get my foot in the door, whether that's contacted about an interview, whether it's specifically through at the interview, depending on the situation, but depending on your needs and what type of preparation for the interview, providing that information ahead of time, whether you're going to have to bring ways to accommodate for yourself or adapt information, how to make sure that the materials that are presented, because some positions require tests when you show up for an interview. So making sure you're prepared for that type of situation and talking to the employer when that situation comes afoot or prior to that coming afoot. So I'm a big believer earlier is better. You're building that trust and that honesty, because when you walk in the door, there's that elephant in the room, that elephant being your disability. I'm not just a person, I'm also a person with a disability. I'm a person who's blind or visually impaired, no vision in my left eye, and I have the tiniest bit of vision in my right eye that I can see lights and shape, and in a dark room probably make out information on a computer screen or a monitor with magnification and contrast, but typically I'm using a screen reader. So when I mentioned my disability, I didn't tell you I have retinitis pigmentosa, deterioration of the retina from the outside to the inside. I didn't get into the medical information around it. A wise young lady once told me, keep your drama with your mama. So I say that to you. Keep your drama with your mama. Be prepared to talk about your information on how it will impact the work you're doing and then how you overcome it. So if you're explaining a screen reader or a refreshable Braille screen, be prepared to explain it in practical terms. If you have the ability to bring technology with you, like the devices that are going to be mentioned, whether it's magnifiers, video magnifiers, whether it's even your iPhone, whether you're using Zoom or VoiceOver, an Android device, and so on. People like technology, so it is a selling point if you're competent in using that technology and explaining it. Some of the other areas that we can address during this webinar is how to deal with potential employers' fears or concerns about your abilities or necessary adaptations. I'm a big believer in, if you walk into the room and that employer is going to have questions about you, because as I said, it's the elephant in the room. So I just walked in the room. I have this big purple elephant standing next to me. He's about 6 feet tall. He's about 500 pounds. So I walk into this room. I have this purple elephant or pink elephant with me. And the employer, I'm not addressing that pink or purple elephant at all. That employer is going to have questions about that purple elephant. First of all, why is this guy walking in here with a purple elephant? So I have to make sure I address why this purple elephant is here. What is it? Why it's here? How we're going to deal with it? But how, as a person with a disability, I'm going to accomplish my job. I speak around the country and I talk about that. The most common question asked in a job interview is that, tell me a little bit about yourself. That's your opportunity for a sales pitch. It's a 60-second to 3-minute, depending on the length of time and who you're interacting with. It's not just an employment skill, it's a life skill as a person with a disability. We have to be prepared to talk about ourselves. So within our sales pitch, we include information about our work experience, accomplishments, things we've done well, where we're from, education, volunteer experience or volunteer work that we've done. And as we go through those, like mention our skills, certifications possibly, and we're going to also mention our disability. But again, you're going to keep your drama with your mama, and you're going to mention the practical implications. You're going to talk about that I'm a person who's blind, and this is how I overcome it, or this is how I deal with it. There are two major questions that employers have about hiring someone who's blind or visually impaired. One is, how are they going to do the job? And number two is, how are they going to get to work? And it's not even just get to work, it's how are they going to get from their desk to the bathroom, as crazy as that sounds. Most people who are not blind or visually impaired don't believe they've met someone who's blind or visually impaired. And even if their grandmother has macular degeneration and is losing vision and such, they will claim that they have not met someone who's blind or visually impaired or interacted with someone who's blind or visually impaired. So it's our job to dispel those concerns. We have to take them and make them comfortable. The question about concerns was really easy up until about March 23rd or 24th of 2014. Employers were not allowed to ask you about your disability unless you brought it up first. It's got a little trickier. I always felt that was a double-edged sword, because no matter whether they ask or not, they have those concerns, and we need to address those concerns. We have to answer the questions they're not asking. So as of March 23rd or 24th, Section 503 provided encourages federal contractors and subcontractors to hire persons with disabilities. And they look at a utilization goal of around 7% if you're between 50 to 100 employees. Federal contractors and subcontractors could be universities, medical centers, obviously contractors with defense, like with the military, people building planes, computer systems, phone company, many cellular companies. All these businesses are federal contractors and subcontractors, most likely. And this utilization goal of 7% within 50 to 100 employees, or if they're over 100 employees, it's 7% within each job category, provides us an opportunity. These employers are actively recruiting people, persons with or individuals with disabilities. Literally, they're contacting organizations, reaching out, trying to find people who are with disabilities, including blind or visually impaired, that are competent, skilled, and especially skilled with their technology. There are opportunities out there for all of you right now. If you look through the jobs out there that they're advertising, they're specific, and these companies have specific recruiters or partner with agencies that are helping them recruit people who are blind or visually impaired or with other disabilities. So there is an opportunity for you, but you have to be prepared to answer those questions that they're not asking. Even if only, and because of that utilization goal, these federal contractors and subcontractors were provided a waiver by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. So they can ask you if you have a disability at a certain point in the employment process. So it is up to you, though, to address that elephant in the room, because not all employers, I used to say all employers, are not supposed to ask you if you have a disability unless you bring it up first. But you should take control of disclosure. It's your own disclosure. You should be prepared and understand. So that tell me a little bit about yourself. That sales pitch provides you an opportunity to sell yourself and answer those questions and provide the opportunity. You don't want an employer walking away from an interview with you having more questions about you. The fact is, if they have questions about you after the interview process, most likely they're not going to hire you. So we want to answer those questions. And if they have questions about adaptations, be prepared to know about the types of accommodations that are possible. You can't know every situation you're going to come across in the workplace, but I suggest looking at the job description and the job duties and analyzing and figuring out what types of tools you'll need to do that type of job. Come with ideas around it. You know, the Job Accommodations Network, JAN, provides an estimate that on average, persons with disabilities have a accommodation cost of around $600. You know, there are definitely ranges for that depending on the technology and all of that, and that accounts for a lot of people that use minimal or use basic technology and accommodations within their technology. But we have to be prepared to justify why that's going to allow us to be efficient, how it makes us efficient on the job, and be prepared to possibly demonstrate some of that technology or explain that technology or provide them links or connections to information about that technology. Okay, here we go. You know, where can you find information about employers that are friendly or to persons with disabilities? I'll tell you, there's a lot of employers out there looking to connect with persons with disabilities. You can look at groups like the United States Business Leadership Network. They provide a network of companies that are actively looking to embrace the employment of persons with disabilities, veterans, and other people trying to overcome barriers. There are other organizations, National Organization on Disability, but a lot of these employers are out there actively pursuing the hiring of persons with disabilities. But we have to prepare to represent ourselves competently and present ourselves in the right image. You know, there's Disabled Persons Inc., which offers job boards where we can look through different job boards around other businesses that are looking to hire persons with disabilities or actively recruiting persons with disabilities. I'll tell you that presenting yourself in the right way on LinkedIn can provide you connections. There are employers that are actively recruiting competent people who are with disabilities through LinkedIn even. Recruiters are contacting, they'll see what's in your profile, if there is mentions of organizations or businesses. You know, we have to think about how employers are reaching out. We have to be create a better network. We have to be making contact with people, companies, businesses, people that are doing the jobs that we want to do. We connect with them, provide information about ourselves, but we also want to show that we value what they're doing and want to find out more about the work they do. I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with the people that are doing the job you want to do. So AFB Career Connect is a great resource for exploring careers. We have the Job Seekers Toolkit, which is about tips and advice around navigating the employment process. But you have to be prepared to put in the work. You know, I tell people that the job search is more than a full-time job. It really is. You get what you put into it. The fact is, people with disabilities apply to more jobs than persons without disabilities. It's just a fact. So we have to be prepared to put in the effort to make that connection, find that opportunity, apply, and put ourselves out there. Being prepared to sell ourselves in the best and demonstrate our skill and be able to explain our skill in easy and practical and easy to understand terms. You know, as we're representing ourselves and we're reaching out and we're thinking about accommodations, we should be looking at the positions or the employment we're going into. We're all not going to we obviously don't start out as CEOs for the most part. There are all different routes to our dream position and steps. So we need to have goals and objectives, specific steps that will get us to where we want to go. You know, so make sure you're planning for your future. Make sure your steps are accurate. Bounce your objectives. I will do this by this date, and provide a specific date and time, and also provide this information to someone else. It makes you accountable and responsible for what your goals and objectives for the future. So with the fact that we're in preparation for being able to handle these accommodations, these different jobs, we have to know about the tools we're using. There are all kinds of tools. As a person who's adapted and adjusted from a person with low vision to a person with little to no vision, you know, I went through the process of using magnifiers, video magnifiers. There's a lot of great tools out there. I'm also a Braille user. I'm not the fastest Braille user, but I'm a Braille user. But being able to explain how we're using this technology or these strategies, whether it's something basic or to something high tech. And HIMSS is providing you information on some of these great tools and information. And I know Michelle's going to give me the opportunity to take questions, but I want to make sure she gets the time to address their information about their products that can offer you that opportunity and that edge in employment.
Thanks so much, Joe. I do see a few questions are coming through the chat window. I'm going to dive into products pretty quickly. We're going to focus on the aspects of some of these products that make them specifically well suited to a workplace. So we're going to skip some of the things that might make it better for school or using around the house, and we're going to try to keep it specifically surrounding the workplace, and then we will open up for questions for everyone after that. The first product we want to talk about is the Candy 5 HD. It's a handheld video magnifier. And what makes this product really unique is that you can actually use it 5 different ways. You can use it with the handle extended as a handheld magnifier. It comes in the box with its own stand so that you can use it as a stand magnifier. Or if you want a little higher magnification, it has a built-in kickstand on the bottom so that you could take it out of the reading stand and put it directly on the paper to read directly on the paper. So those are 3 ways. And then the other 2 features that make this really unique is that we have a near distance mode and a self-view mode. So the near distance mode is going to be great for magnifying maybe a menu at a fast food place over lunch, a bulletin or a memo that's been stapled to the wall at the office. So those types of things. You won't want to use it to look, across a football field or anything, but you could definitely use it to view things, 6 to 10 feet away up on a wall somewhere that are out of reach. It has a very balanced size and weight so that it is very comfortable to hold in your hand. And you can use it anywhere. It's in an office, a meeting room, a warehouse. It works well for 3D objects. So if you're in a warehouse and you need to check part numbers or check labels, it's a great product for doing that. It also works well for reading documents and meeting agenda. And then that self-view mode, it's kind of an overlooked feature, but when you're getting ready in the morning, especially for ladies, if you've got some vision and you want to, use eyeliner or apply your makeup, this will give you a great way to do that and feel very confident in the way you look when you leave the house in the morning. And the next product we have also for low vision are the eBot portable video magnifiers. These are about a year old now. They come in 3 different varieties. They are portable, collapsible desktop video magnifiers. You can connect to an iPad, an Android device, a PC, or a Mac. You also can connect to a monitor using HDMI, or you could connect, if you wanted, to your television screen and have really, really big text. But it has the most versatile connection of all the video magnifiers out there, and we are the only ones right now with a wireless connection to the iPad and Android tablets. You can use them to magnify near and far, so they would be great for a boardroom or a training presentation. So if you're at a new job and they're doing a training and they're writing on a whiteboard, this would be a great product to bring along with you. It weighs only 5 pounds. The eBot Advanced model weighs only 5 pounds, so you can carry that pretty easily. And the eBot Pro model weighs about 7 pounds. And the difference between the two models is that the eBot Pro has a motorized camera, and you control it with a joystick. You don't touch the camera itself. And the eBot Advanced, alternatively, has a camera that you move with your hand, so that you can move it from the paper facing down, or you can point it out towards the wall or towards something at a distance that you want to view. And they do have OCR built in. The eBot Advanced and the eBot Pro both have OCR, which means if you have a printed document under the camera, it can read out loud to you. The eBot Advanced will only read what's on the screen. So if you magnify a paragraph, it will read that paragraph to you. The eBot Pro has a separate camera built in just for OCR, and it will read an entire page to you. Also worth noting that this has a good amount of room underneath it for 3D objects. We had a woman just last week, actually. I talked to a woman who wanted to do crafts under the camera, and she was a knitter, and she was looking for something where she could get under there with the camera and do her craft projects. And she put her hands under the camera and was really impressed with how well it focused on the right things and at the right distance. So the next product, this is one I get really excited about. The next product I want to talk about is the Braille Sense U2. It's a Braille note taker that you can also use as a Braille display with your PC or Mac or any other computer that's supplied by your employer. What makes this so unique and what I get so excited about are the unique apps that HIMSS has put into it. And some of these are things that I'm amazed the competitors don't have. Things like Excel, PowerPoint, Dropbox, things that everyone else is already using in the workplace that people with visual impairments should have access to. So like I said, the Braille Sense U2 is the only note taker on the market right now that has native support for Excel and PowerPoint and Dropbox. There are competitors, I think, that can convert those files into Word, but there isn't anyone out there who's letting you view these files and navigate these files in their native formats. One other unique feature it has is that you can record right into a DAISY format. So if you're in a meeting and you're recording what your boss is saying or a presentation, when you record it into the DAISY format, you're able to kind of bookmark it and make it more effective for going back to those notes later. Also, we have a built-in GPS, a compass, and Google Maps. So if you need to go on a business trip or you just need to get from point A to point B, getting to and from work, it's all built right into the Braille Sense U2. You can build your own macros to save time. So if you get to work and you find out that there's a particular procedure that you're having to do all the time and you're repeating the same keystrokes, you can create your own macros to become really efficient at your job when you get there. And it also is password protected so that you can keep it safe. And then the Braille Edge and the Smart Beetle are two of the Braille displays that HIMSS makes. The most noticeable difference between the two is that the Braille Edge has 40 cells of Braille and the Smart Beetle only has 14 cells. The Braille Edge, in addition to being slightly larger, also has some built-in note-taking abilities. It has an SD card slot so that you could take notes directly on the unit without having to connect it to a computer or a tablet. So it'd be great, like I said, to take into a meeting or to take on a trip, take some notes, and when you get back to the office, you can take that information and move it over to a computer and do what you need with it from there. The Braille Edge has both Bluetooth and USB connectivity, and it has up to 20 hours of battery life, so it's going to last quite a while without needing to be plugged in. The Smart Beetle is only a couple of months old and actually right now is still in beta. So if anyone's been to the ATIA conference or the CSUN conference, they've probably gotten a chance to check it out. But other than that, it's brand new. It's a 14-cell Braille display. It is the smallest, cutest Braille display ever. It fits right in the palm of your hand, and it has, and this is what makes it really unique, again, is the 5 simultaneous Bluetooth connections. It also has one USB connection, so you can plug one unit in wired over the USB, but the 5 simultaneous Bluetooth connections are what really make it stand out. You could, with those connections, you could be working on your computer, and if you know you've got a text message, you can hop over and answer the text message, then jump over to your tablet, check something there, and come back to the computer without disconnecting, without repairing. Just jump around from all of your devices, which is a really, really big deal. And then this one has up to 24 hours of battery life, so it literally will last all day. And then one more product we have is, well, two. We have the Blaze ET and the Blaze EZ. The Blaze EZ came out last year. It's been out for almost a year, a little over a year. And the Blaze ET just came out a few months ago. What these are, they are book players. They're just like your DAISY players that you use for listening to books, but they have a built-in support and a built-in camera to do standalone OCR. So these are book players that you can use to snap a picture of printed text and have it read aloud to you. So when you do that, you can either have it read aloud right away, or you can save it for later. So you can save documents for later. It will play all of your DAISY music and audio book files. There's a whole list of formats that it'll play. It plays music, text, HTML, Word documents, PDFs, Learning Ally, all of those formats that you guys are used to getting in a book player. This will do that, but with the addition of the OCR and the built-in camera. The main difference between the two models is the keypad. So in the Blaze EZ, it's a really simple keypad. There's one button for music, another button for radio, and another one for books. And then you have sort of these directional buttons where you can go left and right and up and down and navigate through the menus. So it's just a really, really simple interface. And then the Blaze ET also has a simple file format, and it's simple to navigate within the unit, but it has a few more buttons on the face of the unit. So it's got your numeric keypad, the numbers 1 through 9, so that you can use that for more advanced features on the unit. It also has a dictionary and a calculator built into it, and both of these being built on Android have the opportunity later to have features added. We don't know what they are yet, but they're pretty awesome as is, and also fairly affordable. We have a few questions that have filtered through, and I'm going to go ahead and start with those. I will read them aloud, and either Joe or myself will take them and answer them as needed. So, Joe, I think the first one is more up your alley. We have a question from NW, and they want to know, how do you convince an employer that you are qualified for a job if some parts of the job requirements may not be accessible? For example, if the job description is marketing and it requires graphic design, you will need help from a sighted person to the graphic design part of the job.
That's a great question. Thank you, NW. You know, I'll tell you that within businesses, when you're looking at the job description, it's important to look at what the essential tasks are. It's important to look at what are defined as essential tasks or specific to a position. Often those are the types of tasks that aren't as easy to get by, but I'll tell you there are differences. When you're looking at a business that is larger, a company or a business that's larger, often they have more focused positions. So they might have aspects that are where essential tasks might not be graphic design. So that if you're looking at a marketing position, it might be around the text information. It might be more on a public relations side. Marketing and public relations are often intertwined. They have different aspects. Obviously, marketing you're typically paying for. You're doing in a different manner. Have often a different message that you're providing. So you may be looking at a spin on a position, but you're looking to do a different aspect of it. If it's not an essential task of the job, and you can find out if that essential task is really an essential task by looking at the position, weighing whether that really is. Because some businesses will define things that are not really essential tasks as an essential task. And that's where talking to the employer and the business, and when you're interacting with them, bringing up that and your knowledge of what is listed under an essential task will definitely stand out among other people. As I prepare for an interview, I also list out questions that I want to ask a business about the position and what is related, and come up with your own workarounds, how you could get by that, or if you could do something like sharing opportunities. You can do more of the writing aspects and all of that, or if there would be some budget that allowed you to utilize someone who could do more of the graphic design side of things. I hope that answers that, but I could go on for a long time about that question.
And concerning marketing jobs specifically, since that's sort of my area of expertise, I am fully sighted. But what I've learned from working on marketing inside the AT industry is that people who use assistive technology and people who have visual impairments are much better suited to make sure that marketing materials are accessible themselves. So you know what needs to be done to make a web form accessible. You know what needs to be done to make a PDF accessible. And the interesting part of that the employers don't realize, and this could be a point of education from you to the employer, is that those things which make these marketing materials accessible to you are also, in most cases, what make them great for Google Analytics. So those things kind of go hand in hand. The alt images and all of those things that we do to make things accessible are great for Google. So one feather in your cap there.
Great point.
The next question we have is, if a person's visual impairment is not obvious, would you suggest disclosing after a job offer is made?
That really relates to what I was talking about building that trust. I can't tell you what the perfect answer is because each individual you're interacting with, and your opportunity is to educate and inform the employer. But the earlier you disclose, obviously you're creating more trust. But there are opportunities. But I bring it back to, do you want to work for someone who might discriminate against someone with a visual impairment after you've already gone through all the steps to provide them with education, awareness, and sell yourself? There's a point where you have to draw the line whether you want to be working with an employer or manager, depending on if they're going to be your supervisor too. But I would make every effort to provide them with the education and information. I always try to get my foot in the door so that I can provide a firsthand opportunity in selling them and explaining to them. But there are opportunities. I can tell you that I faced situations where I've gotten to the interview when I was not as smooth at that process, and where I faced some discrimination because they were shocked. They felt that trust was broken because I showed up to the interview. They did not know I was blind or visually impaired. So in that way, I failed on that occasion for not providing it. It went from a more simple interview to a very detailed, long process of interview where questions were phrased in certain manners. And now, when you get into the level, to the area of discrimination, you're getting in a different area. You have to weigh your options and provide information and awareness. I typically provide them with opportunities for education and awareness, even after the situation of discrimination. But I also know my rights, and I also know about the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and how that process works. So it's important to be informed of your rights, but also you want to build a bridge. You have the opportunity to create an opportunity for yourself or someone else who is blind or visually impaired or with another disability.
We have a product question from James. He wants to know, how do those 5 simultaneous connections avoid colliding with each other? And he's asking about the Smart Beetle Braille display. And the way those work is that you set all 5 of them up when you get the unit or when you're doing the setup. And then there's a simple key combination that you push to switch between the 5 connections. So as you switch from one device to the next, it'll tell you which device you're connected to. So you're technically only using one at a time, but it's a really simple, like 1-second button to switch to the next Bluetooth device. And then Melissa wants to know, what tips do you have for people who are experiencing discrimination?
I'll tell you, that's a common question. I really, there's different situations. So I would say do all you can to provide education and awareness, but there are situations where you will have to stand up, let the supervisors or the people above, if depending on the size of your organization, whether you have a HR department, making sure you follow and provide report the individual or the situation to the HR department and try to rectify it in a manner that seems appropriate. Now, there are definitely extremes that happen, and where organizations or companies will not follow through and will leave you in a situation. You have to really weigh your opportunity, weigh how much that position means to you. Going through the EEOC protects you under that, but I'll tell you that businesses can find ways to relieve someone of their position when they want to. But that doesn't mean they're not at fault, and that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be liable in a court or in mediation and such. So I believe in trying everything I can to build that relationship, but there are times when we have to stand up, report the situation. Definitely keep track of information dealing with that, but also most organizations, again, larger organizations, will have steps, ways that you can report the situation, rectify the situation, a process to mediate the situation. But otherwise, there are obviously organizations like the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which has a whole process for reporting individuals. That doesn't mean the situation will be rectified totally, though. I'll tell you that right now. You can provide complaints. That doesn't mean the situation will change totally. So that's the best information I can give you on that question.
And we have a question from Sam. They said, I was in Washington, D.C., and Craigslist job ads would say that public transportation was not considered a reliable means of transportation. Is this discriminatory?
In my opinion, you have to look at what the essential tasks are in the job. It depends on what the job entailed, like what the reliability. In some cases, public transportation would be more reliable in a place like Washington, D.C. If you're going out to businesses, if you're going out during rush hour, you're not going to be most likely driving to those businesses. especially in Washington, D.C. or large cities and such where traffic and the traffic patterns can be an issue. I would say that you would have an argument, but the fact is you have to look at what the job entails. People can put driving, and when they start putting driver's license in the job description, which is not uncommon. I've written a blog post about this. That I see this even in field working with people with disabilities, the businesses and organizations putting stuff like that in it. Often you still apply for that job, you go for that job, and you offer what your accommodations would be, whether it be yourself hiring, if the pay allowed, hiring your own driver. I know people that pay for a driver that allow them access to the job. I know people that create an accommodation where they have a shared responsibility. Under ADA, businesses are not reasonable accommodation hiring another person to do an essential job tasks. Now, if they put that under an essential job task, the driving, you may have to make up for that by using public transportation. If they say it's not reliable, you can go through in situations and try. That could be argued easily. I would say, especially in an area like Washington, D.C.
Someone else asked, if you are connected with the State Department of Rehabilitation and other agencies, and all they want to do is train you when you've been trained to death, and neither really helps to get a job, where else can you go?
Vocational rehabilitation is supposed to provide you with opportunity and preparation for employment and provide you training, and in some cases, some job placement. But for the most part, they're providing you the training and the opportunity. And I would say when you've been trained to death, as the person put, you have to be more thinking about differently about your employment. Obviously, there are opportunities out there, depending on our situation, whether we're more businesses are telecommuting, but I'll tell you, often telecommuting comes after proving yourself in person or having a proven track record, whether with that organization or another organization, you've become a known entity, a known a resource. So often it takes building. Making sure that you're looking in the right places, using the right avenues to search for jobs, thinking about it in the fact, often people are living in rural areas and are not always willing to move. And if you have a family and children, that may not be an opportunity for you. But living in a place where you have transportation and have more opportunities can make a difference in the world of employment. I'm not telling everyone to move. There are other options. There are obviously self-employment. There's also telecommuting, but finding those opportunities are not always easy. So I think creating your own opportunities is another method, but making sure you're marketing yourself in the right manner and searching and putting on your own effort. I said it's more than a full-time job seeking for employment.
And Christine put out there another option is to look into telecommuting jobs if you can. And I know those are sometimes hard to find. If you have experience in an industry, then it's a little easier to get people to let you work from home. But a few places you can look online if you have skills with writing or creative writing or educational writing. A lot of those blogs that you see on the internet are not actually written by the people who are listed as authors. So if you go to places like odesk.com, odesk.com, or Fiverr, fiverr.com, those are just two places, but those are places where you can put yourself out there as a writer for hire. I would go with Odesk over Fiverr because Fiverr tends to only pay $5 or $10 per job, and that's kind of their thing. But there are lots of websites out there where you can apply to be a ghostwriter for a blog. So if that's something you do well, that's a great place to find work and to build your portfolio if you're someone who's into writing a lot.
Great point there.
We had another question. How do you deal with an employer who sees a blind person as a greater insurance risk?
The liability thing is definitely on the list of questions from employers. There is no statistic that shows that a person who's blind or visually impaired is a larger liability on the job than any other person. Actually, you know, uh, we're more typically persons with disabilities are more reliable. They stay in the same job longer, which is a double-edged sword, which means they're not often moving up or advancing too, but they're often willing to. I'll tell you, in organizations, typically when people who rely on public transportation are more likely to show up to work, to employment in weather issues specific to poor weather. So persons with disabilities may show up, and then because they're relying on public transportation and other forms of public transportation, when persons who are driving themselves might not show up to work. Um, they're dealing with the liability issue. It's just about explaining how you do things, making them comfortable, but also looking back on your references. It's not just asking a person to be a reference. It takes coaching of your references, giving your references advice on information to address with employers, what they can talk about, what they should talk about, making them bring up situations from the workplace. If you have actual employment experience and references that are willing to speak up for you and talk about your disability in a positive manner and how you did your job, that is tremendous.
And Sarah wants to know, can you give the organizations that are disability friendly again?
Yeah, definitely. One of the big organizations out there that's a member organization for these companies and businesses is called the United States Business Leadership Network, USBLN.org. The National Organization on Disability. I personally work a lot with USBLN. They have companies such as a lot of big corporations that have the HR departments and have even specific people that are working around recruitment and possibly accommodation. I can name off a list of companies that are members of these organizations or partner with these organizations, but USBLN.org, NOD, National Organization on Disability, those are two organizations that specifically work with persons to work with employers to promote the employment of persons with disabilities, veterans, and other persons trying to overcome barriers. I really, I strongly suggest looking at these organizations and a lot of the companies they work with. There are a lot of persons with disabilities that I personally know that work with these organizations. A lot of them have set systems and around embracing disability and their employees.
And Joni added, a reference is really good and resume building can start in high school. I teach high school blind students.
Awesome. I totally agree. The earlier, the better. I believe in, you know, I talk around the country, and as I'm talking, I talk about volunteer experience. I've been offered 5 different jobs while volunteering out in the community. This is in college. This has been in grad school in different situations. I still volunteer in my local community. It helps you grow your network. It provides the show how you're demonstrating skills that you utilize, and also shows that your persons with disabilities are productive and give back to the community.
Another Kim, a different Kim, wants to know, is there a resource or agency that can speak to good methods to educate community employers, especially in rural areas where visual impairments are a very low incidence?
I can provide some ideas and thoughts on that. I've done a lot of that in different communities and working in different states, but often people vocational rehabilitation may offer an employment specialist or someone who works with businesses specific to encouraging them the hiring of persons with disabilities. But I often think that one of the best tools for that is bringing employers who have hired someone with a disability specific to blindness and visual impairment right now, and bringing them together with other employers, having them be the person that's delivering the message. So when I speak, I talk about that there can be forums on where you invite employers to them, have specific employers who have hired someone with disabilities or different disabilities, talking about their relationship and how developed in the benefits of it, but also giving them the opportunity to speak in private, because employers will ask other employers questions that they will not ask professionals. So that's just some thoughts on that.
I think also if you can find a local networking group, a lot of times the Chamber of Commerce will have weekly or monthly networking events, and that's a great opportunity to get out there yourself, let people see your ability to talk and network and to get around. I think there's a misconception among people who don't have a lot of interactions with the visually impaired that they're all sitting in their basements, pining away, doing nothing all day. And I think just putting yourself out there and, like I said, let people see how you interact with people, let them see how you network, let them see how you get around, and that could open some eyes right there.
That's a great point, Michelle. I'm a member of our Rotary Club locally in Huntington. We participate in the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a member of the Lions Club, and I present to all these different organizations on employment of person or employing persons with disabilities and specifically blindness and visual impairment, and definitely breaking down barriers. And a lot of these people that are members of these clubs and organizations are employers and business owners and or higher up in businesses. So those provide opportunities for jobs. I can tell you other people have networked into other roles or jobs through those types of organization. 70% of jobs typically, especially second jobs, come from networking. And whether it's your professional or personal network, that provides a large opportunity for all of you out there.
We have a few other questions coming through. I can see that they're being typed, so we'll wait for those to come through. On the screen right now, I do have some information about our next webinar, which will be held Tuesday, April 14th at 3 o'clock Eastern. And we're going to go over some teaching tips from TVIs for TVIs, and those are teachers of the visually impaired. And so we've surveyed some of the TVIs that we work with and some of the people that have participated in focus groups, and we've collected some of their top tips and accommodations ideas, and we're going to share those with you next month on the webinar. So if you'd like to register, again, it's April 14th at 3 Eastern, and you can register online at hims-inc.com/webinars. And our questions have come through. Jamie says, hi, this is a question from a student. How do you find job openings compared to job seekers who are sighted?
Yeah, okay. And it depends on what kind of job you're looking for. I'll tell you that. Hourly jobs, it's really about creating a face, going out there and meeting people, whether they are advertising their jobs online. Small businesses, it's going down to those businesses, visiting, dressed appropriately, dressed to impress, and providing information and selling yourself, putting your foot in the door, and also making sure that you are aware of where people are advertising their jobs, whether it's through local job boards, whether it's through newspaper, whether it's web, whether it's their website, or whether it's even going into the business, as I said. Now, when we're talking business, depending on the type of business and type of job, salary jobs typically are advertised online. And also they're released often earlier through people's personal network. So more and more social media has become a big player in the employment. So as we talk about networking, social network media and social network is important as well. Making sure we're utilizing our connections. Most often, people do not utilize their personal network. They don't reach out to their connections to ask about jobs that people know about. Reach out to their connections and ask them if they know of leads. Or I can tell you personally, I was on Facebook interacting with an old classmate from high school, and he was mentioning that he just got laid off. So we started corresponding through messaging. I'm like, I want you to post something on Facebook, and I'll like it and I'll share it as well. So that all of our friends, we have lots of friends who are successful. I want you to tell me what type of job you're looking for and ask to connect with them. Do you know anyone doing that type of job? And so he sent messages, he put out a post, and we literally had a list of people that provided him opportunities. He had multiple interviews and he had a job within a month. So using your personal network and using your friends' personal networks and putting yourself out there.
And Joni added, leads groups are popular too for adults. It's a group where there may be only one person in various fields and they meet for breakfast or lunch meetings and they share leads. Another product question from NW. He said, my Victor Reader Stream legacy model just broke and I am getting ready to purchase a new Daisy player. Will my old SD card that I created on the Victor Reader Stream work with the Book Sense, or will I have to go and recreate all of my folders and files again on the Book Sense? I'm going to answer that two different ways. We are no longer selling the Book Sense. There may be a few used units left, and I'm not sure if you already own one and you're moving them over, but if you're looking to purchase a Book Sense, the only units that are left right now, I think, are dealer demos, which are in good condition because they're just demo units. They're not necessarily used. But if you're looking to move them into the Blaze EZ or the Blaze ET, those are our new book readers that come with the OCR. I know the file system on those, I don't know if you can pop your SD card in there. That would be a question for support. And you can email them at support@hims-inc.com. But I know for sure if you want to move your files to the Blaze EZ, our units actually will sort out the files for you. So they'll automatically figure out what's a book, they'll figure out what's music, and they'll sort it within the unit. And that's one of the nicer features about the Blaze book players is that you don't have to put your books in the book folder and your music in the music folder. But outside of that, I'm not a product expert per se, but if you want to reach out to support, or you can give them a call in Texas at 888-520-4467. This has been a great discussion, and these have been great questions so far from everyone. Emily says, great webinar, thanks. Tracy said, my son lives in Austin. Where is the best place for him to go to look for a job?
Yeah, Austin, Texas is definitely a city, and it definitely embraces disability and persons who are blind or visually impaired. I would say Austin is one of the friendlier places to persons with disability. Depending on what type of work would depend on where he would go and how he would address his job search. There are definitely opportunities in Austin. I know there are large corporations in that area as well as small businesses. Definitely more of a open-minded atmosphere. So it really depends on what type of job search he's looking into. I know vocational rehabilitation would be in that area, would provide advice, but I would also tell him to definitely put his boots on and start also talk to his personal network. Again, depends on what type of work he's doing. It's not a real easy answer unless I know that.
And James wants to know, how do you feel your Blaze EZ competes with an iPod Touch with the KNFB app? And there's two ways to look at that. I don't see them necessarily competing because I think some people prefer buttons and some people don't. If you are someone that prefers buttons, then you're going to probably want to go with the Blaze EZ compared to a touchscreen. It's going to be probably a little bit easier to navigate. And the other thing to look at too, if you're talking about an iPod Touch, it's a little different than an iPhone. We have a lot of people asking to compare against an iPhone with the KNFB app. And the big difference there is that if you're using your iPhone for OCR, your battery is going to die a lot quicker. And I know my iPhone hardly ever makes it through a whole day with all my text messages and everything else. So if you're using it with the OCR and you're using the book player inside the iPhone, you're going to want a spare battery, or you might have issues at the end of the day trying to find a plug. So that's the other nice side of the Blaze EZ, is that it has an extremely long-lasting battery, so that it can last all day long, and then you're not draining your phone at the same time. But I think a lot of that is just going to be your preference. If you prefer to have the touchscreen and have Siri talking back and forth to you, then you can do that. With the Blaze EZ, you don't need to worry about messing things up with Siri and confusion like that.
And I know that this is really not my part, but I agree with everything you said. I travel a lot. I use an iPhone. I have the KNFB Reader app, and I'm looking into getting that device for the same purpose that I drain my battery using the book reader and or iBooks or whatever app I'm using to access books on my iPhone, and also to access information. So having another separate device means that when you need your iPhone, it won't be dead. And I also use external batteries for charging and stuff, but it's just much easier to have an external device to go to when you have those needs.
And Sarah wants to know, do you recommend any LinkedIn groups?
I use a ton of LinkedIn groups. I specifically, if depending on what type of work you're looking for, I really think you have to look. Remember, I said surround yourself with people that are doing the job you want. So if there's work you want to do, make sure you're surrounding yourself on LinkedIn with people that are doing the work you want to do. Connect with them. Ask them questions about their job. Not simple questions that you can learn by searching the internet, but by specific questions about their work. Provide. Look for opportunity to connect them over the phone or whatever in person. But also make sure you pick groups that surround the work or the efforts you want to do. Often jobs will be mentioned through those groups, and so that provides an opportunity. Obviously, LinkedIn also has job boards as well, or a job search too. But I definitely think you should look at groups around the work you're looking to do.
Okay, it's pretty quiet in the chat window. I want to just take a minute to thank everyone for joining us today. I know a lot of people have taken time away from their school schedules and their job schedules to be here with us. So I want to thank you for taking that time. Again, if you have questions about our products or about employment, give us a call in Austin at 888-520-4467. And if you have ideas for future webinars or topics you'd like us to cover, you can go ahead and email webinars at HIMS, HIMS -inc.com. And I want to also thank Joe for being on the line with us today. Joe, your insights have been very valuable, and I think a lot of these questions have shown that there's a good need out there for the type of work that you do.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Michelle, and thank you, HIMS, and thank you all who have attended. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to provide any tips and advice I could. You can visit again AFB Career Connect at afb.org/cc or afbcareerconnect.org. Check it out today, and check out the Career Connect blog, and we also have an app, a free app as well, that provides information and tips and advice as well.